And then all of a sudden we connect with a 101st JTAC who's on a couple mountaintops over from Roberts Ridge. And he's in contact with a U.S. Air Force combat controller, Hotz Hotailing, retired as the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air National Guard. Hotz is with a Australian SAS team. They're down on the south end of the valley. They've got a feed coming down off of an agency Predator. And because that back then, U.S. Air Force Predators weren't armed. That's how you knew when you were talking to the agency guys, because they were talking like they're doing CAS. And
gotcha. Okay.
So you could differentiate. And then we started figuring out the call signs. Wildfire was the agency guys. And so they had IR markers because the Air Force Preds didn't have jack. They had a sensor bulb. They didn't even have an IR pointer. Whereas the agency guys were fully decked out with what we knew the advanced Predator to be.
But then also, you mentioned, at this time, stovepipe, that is the thing that obviously came out of 9/11. But this stovepiping obviously exists and it's in the culture. Not to even mention if there was even, the lack of integration between the customer and what you guys are doing. So this is another barrier to it. Because, the Chapman's his fight was off of an agency Predator, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. And then finally took when the CIA declassified that. So, you guys, I mean, I guess you probably assume they're there, but you have no tie to them or input from them whatsoever.
We just started figuring out because all of a sudden, like you'd be talking to like you couldn't talk to them you couldn't talk to our Preds, but the agency Preds you could talk to. And so like all of a sudden you started figuring out that like, and if you think about it, when did the Pred really become a thing? Allied force, but even then, very limited integration based on like what the asset was viewed as, which was a 2 asset, not a 3. And in this case, our Preds weren't armed, the blue mainstream Preds. So you started figuring out that there's these other assets out there that you have no coordination with. You really don't know what their capabilities are until you just start watching them and listening to them. So in this case, this JTAC, ETAC is talking to Hotz. They, for whatever reason, they didn't have comms where they could talk to us. They might have, been on HF or SAT. And so they're relaying what they're seeing off of a Pred feed to the 101st ETAC, who's trying to describe it to me. So we're playing this comm wheel. I got like the coordinates suck. Like it's not anywhere, like it's in the middle of the valley. Like I can't see anything. The sun's starting to fall, set. So all the valleys are in darkness. And so what they're describing for us is that there's these 4 technical vehicles that the SAS team watched come in and go into this valley. And it's the valley right below Roberts Ridge, which eventually becomes what we called engagement area rat line. This is where they were funneling everything in from Pakistan and from Nixon's nose, Koust Bowl area. This is how they were resupplying. And so anyway, they're relaying to us, say there's 4 technical vehicles and there's 200 to 300 dudes who are just coming out of the hillsides. And what they had discerned was this is where these nightly counterattacks were coming from. So anyway, they're telling us that it's a hog driver's dream. Like they're lining up, like no kidding. It's like a parade. We can't see it, but there's 4 of these, Toyota Hilux trucks and 200 to 300 bad guys lining up behind them. And so we're discussing with the ETAC and I'm like, okay. And I got 2 Hornets stacked up above me and they've got air bursts, 2 each air bursts. We've got 6. So I'm like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to roll in. I'm going to start at what I think the front end of the column is, and we're just going to walk these things back because this valley is so tight. And like, it's going to be like, if we get on target, this is going to be devastating. So I rip 4, K9 rips 2, the 2 Hornets come in, rip 4 more. And as soon as I dropped, I got secondary. So I knew I'd hit the leading edge with those technical vehicles. And so we just they had nowhere to go. So we're like, just keep walking them back. And then the Hornets.
Could you see him, or were you saying it was like dust time, getting dark? So yeah,
couldn't see anything. I was shooting in the dark.
Gotcha. Okay.
I used a Willie Pete beforehand, right before, just to confirm. I put it right in front and just go, this is the valley we're talking about, right? and knowing that I could tip my hand, but it was only day 2. These guys hadn't quite connected Willie Pete with inbound death, which later on, when you put Willie Pete on the deck, that was it. They were off to the races. But at this point, we could still do it.